Diving is a fun and exciting activity that can be enjoyed by anyone who is healthy. However, scuba diving is not without some risk. Breathing compressed air underwater can cause serious illness or injury. That's the focus of DAN, the Divers Alert Network. DAN has developed a first aid course for scuba diving injuries using emergency oxygen. Although rare when a diving injury does occur, oxygen first aid is one of the most important measures you can provide for the injured diver. These scuba diving injuries include decompression illness and near drowning. Founded in 1980, DAN is an international non-profit dive safety organization committed to improving diving safety and to conducting dive research. With its international headquarters located in the United States at Duke University Medical Center in Durham, North Carolina, DAN has affiliates in Europe, Japan, Southeast Asia Pacific, and Southern Africa. DAN works to prevent diving injuries and accidents. If you have a question concerning diving medicine, dive safety, fitness for diving, or for a referral to a physician knowledgeable in diving medicine, you can call DAN's Diving Medical and Safety Information Line. DAN also conducts research into why divers get hurt. Occasionally, there is no apparent reason for the injury. DAN is also looking into how flying after diving and various environmental and physiological conditions may affect diving safety. DAN is able to provide these valuable services to the entire dive community because of the support of the world's largest association of recreational divers, the DAN membership. DAN members pay an annual fee to join DAN and receive many valuable benefits. DAN member benefits include Alert Diver, diving's leading safety magazine; DAN Travel Assist, access to potential evacuation in a medical emergency when you travel; and the opportunity to purchase the most affordable and comprehensive dive accident insurance available. Ask your DAN Oxygen instructor or retail store sponsor how to get involved today. DAN is your Dive Safety Association. Another way DAN works to improve dive safety is through training and education. DAN has developed this oxygen first aid program and related oxygen delivery equipment to promote the benefits of emergency oxygen first aid for injured divers. DAN wants to ensure that oxygen and someone trained in its use is available at every dive site and on every dive boat. The purpose of this video program is to supplement instruction in the DAN Oxygen Provider course. But you can't learn how to provide oxygen from watching this program alone. This program helps fulfill the knowledge development section of the DAN Oxygen Provider course. Section 1, Anatomy and Physiology as it relates to oxygen first aid. Section 2, Scuba diving injuries and their signs and symptoms and why oxygen is so important. Section 3, Oxygen, its hazards and handling techniques. Section 4, Oxygen equipment. Section 5, Providing oxygen first aid, the skills needed for assisting an injured diver. It should be noted that the DAN Oxygen Provider course does not provide training for cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR, scuba diving rescue and dive accident management, and the use of oxygen in non-diving emergencies such as a heart attack or stroke. Ask your DAN Oxygen instructor or DAN retail store sponsor about other training opportunities. It's important to understand the function of the circulatory and respiratory systems so that you will recognize the importance of oxygen. The cells of the human body require a constant supply of oxygen, since oxygen is necessary for much of the metabolism that occurs within cells. These processes use oxygen and produce carbon dioxide. In the absence of oxygen, the cells will deteriorate and die. Some cells, like those found in the brain and central nervous system, are most sensitive to the deficiency of oxygen. Without oxygen, these cells will die within a matter of minutes. The two primary systems responsible for the delivery of oxygen to the body are the respiratory and circulatory systems. The respiratory system is responsible for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the body and the environment. The circulatory system carries gases and nutrients in the blood and transports blood throughout the body. Oxygen is taken from the atmosphere into the lungs where it enters the bloodstream. Carbon dioxide is removed from the blood, taken into the lungs, and expelled into the atmosphere. It is here in the alveoli, the smallest structures of the lung, where oxygen is exchanged for carbon dioxide. Oxygen inhaled into the lung is traded for carbon dioxide in the body. The oxygen is then available for use within the body for metabolism, and the carbon dioxide, metabolism's waste product, can be expelled through exhalation. It's the combination of the respiratory and circulatory systems that are responsible for providing oxygen to the tissues of the body. If an injury occurs to either system, such as during a scuba diving injury, oxygen flow to the body tissues will be decreased and symptoms will result. Hypoxia is the term used to describe an insufficient supply of oxygen to the body tissues. Recognition of scuba diving injuries is based on the individual's recent history of scuba diving and the presence of signs and symptoms. A sign is a medical condition that can be observed by the rescuer, such as difficulty walking. A symptom is any non-observable condition described by the injured diver, such as a headache. In short, a sign is something you can see, and a symptom is something the injured diver tells you. The two most common major diving injuries that will be reviewed during this program are near drowning and decompression illness. Near drowning occurs when a person is submerged in a liquid and is unable to breathe. Eventually, water is inhaled into the lungs, which then impairs the body's ability to transfer oxygen into the bloodstream. Near drowning leads to hypoxia or oxygen deficiency. Decompression illness, DCI, results from bubble formation and growth and causes oxygen deficiency to the affected area. DCI is a term used to describe both decompression sickness, commonly referred to as the bends, and arterial gas embolism, also referred to as air embolism. Because both conditions require the same first aid and initial treatment, and it can be difficult to differentiate between the two injuries, decompression illness is used to describe a scuba diving injury. Let's look at what causes decompression illness. Arterial gas embolism, or AGE, may occur as a result of lung overpressurization during ascent while breathing compressed air or other gas mixture like enriched air nitrox. The gas is then introduced into the bloodstream in the lung in the form of bubbles carried by the blood back to the heart and out the arteries. As the arteries get smaller, eventually the gas bubble forms an obstruction. If the bubble passes directly to the brain, it can cause rapid and dramatic symptoms. Decompression sickness, or the bends, is the result of bubbles that form and grow during or after ascent because excess nitrogen or other inert gas is not sufficiently eliminated. The effects of these bubbles include distortion of tissue, reduction or stoppage of blood flow, and activation of blood clotting. Regardless of where the bubbles form, hypoxia results to surrounding body tissues. Diving injuries such as near drowning and DCI have a broad range of signs and symptoms. Many of these signs and symptoms are similar to other illnesses and injuries like muscle or joint pain from a sports-related injury or chest pain and difficulty breathing from a heart attack. Decompression illness has no definitive presentation to confirm its presence. Any area of the body may be involved. Symptoms are often vague and can go unrecognized by the diver. If they are recognized, they may be dismissed as insignificant or not diving related. Early recognition of the signs and symptoms of diving injuries is critical to facilitate the resolution of symptoms at the earliest possible moment. Symptom recognition is the first step in managing a scuba diving injury. Once a symptom is noted or a sign observed, emergency oxygen first aid should be provided. Injured divers may only have one of the following signs and symptoms or have several at the same time. Decompression illness is unpredictable. The most common signs and symptoms include numbness and tingling most often occurs in the extremities and may feel like that part has fallen asleep or a funny bone has been hit. Pain, which can be a dull, sharp, boring, or aching sensation in or around a joint or muscle. Post-dive headaches are common and are typically ambiguous. They may be due to exposure to the sun, a pressure-related injury of the sinus cavity, carbon dioxide retention, or decompression illness. Headaches associated with DCI often are accompanied by other symptoms. Dizziness and vertigo refers to a sense of spinning and can lead to a loss of balance. Fatigue associated with DCI is more severe and out of proportion with the exercise of the dive. Although it is not unusual to feel somewhat tired after a dive, if you feel extremely fatigued, you may suspect a diving injury. Nausea may also be a symptom of DCI. Difficulty walking following a dive is a clear sign of possible diving injury, and paralysis may result. Skin sensation may be altered when DCI occurs, and it may be difficult to differentiate between objects that are sharp and dull and soft and hard. While these are the most common signs and symptoms of diving injuries, many other possibilities exist. These include rash and itching, difficulty breathing, visual disturbance, restlessness, paralysis, muscle twitching, unconsciousness, personality change, speech disturbance, altered level of responsiveness, bladder or bowel control problems, hearing loss or ringing in the ears, coughing up blood or sputum, convulsions. Few diving injuries are catastrophic, and rarely do they result in a non-breathing diver. Although DCI has a wide range of signs and symptoms, usually multiple symptoms occur at different times. The onset time of DCI varies from just after a dive to 24 hours or more following a dive. However, most symptoms occur in the first 2 hours following a dive. An ascent to altitude, as in while flying in an aircraft, may also precipitate symptom onset. Also, injured divers may experience symptoms in the water which could lead to drowning. Once a diver is injured, it's important to call for assistance. Call Dan if you're not sure what to do. If you suspect you or a buddy are injured, you need to be evaluated by a healthcare provider at the nearest available medical facility, and then possibly be referred to a hyperbaric or recompression chamber for definitive treatment. Many injured divers delay seeking medical evaluation and assistance because signs and symptoms of DCI can be subtle and can go unnoticed. Some divers don't seek help because they're in remote locations, feel their symptoms aren't serious enough, or are concerned about the expense of evacuation and treatment. Dan suggests that every diver carry dive accident insurance. The cost of treatment can be very high and is often not covered in personal health care plans. The longer a diver delays evaluation and treatment for a diving injury, the lower the chances are of effective treatment and complete symptom resolution. If you are injured while diving, it's suggested that you not return to diving until all of your symptoms have cleared and you've been evaluated by a physician. Remember, symptom recognition is the first step in